Hi there, my name's Cathi Barker from Software Solutions, and you're looking at the first of a collection of videos that accompany my Microsoft Excel Level 3 Data Manipulation course. Now this particular video, I want to look at the topic of filtering, which we do touch on in my Level 1 course, but I really want to cover it in complete detail. I've opened up the Excel Level 3 file that goes with the courseware, and what I want to do is start by first of all saving this file with a different name. So with this Excel file, I'm going to press the function key F12. F12 is a shortcut key for save as. And instead of Excel3, I want to call this Excel3-2, and I'm going to save it to my desktop. Then I'm going to turn around and press F12 again and save the file again, but this time as Excel3-1. And this is the file I want to start with to begin with. What we've got here is a sheet called targets, and in this sheet called targets, I want to first of all look at how many records we've got in this list. If you press the control down arrow, and I'm sitting in A1, you will be taken to the bottom of the list, which takes you down to row 271. So with the exception of the headings in row 1, we have 270 records in this list. If I press control down arrow again just to double check, there is actually nothing going on under row 271 right to the bottom. If I go control up arrow and then control up arrow, I'm back to the top of the list. So I'm dealing with a list that has 270 records. So what is a list? A list in Excel means that each column has a unique column heading. So we've got first name, last name, region, department, year, target, deadline, and actual. So that qualifies as a list. We also, under the headings, have records. Each row is considered a record. Now you can have a record with a blank cell. Maybe I don't have an actual sales figure for this particular person yet, so I can have a blank cell, and I'll just press undo. But you can't have a blank row. So if I clicked on this row, say, and press Control Plus, I've inserted a blank row. So now Excel considers this to be one list, and what's below the blank row is a second list. So you don't want any blank rows if possible as well. So we'll get rid of that. Control minus. So I've got what's called a list. Each row is a record. We can have a blank cell. We can't have an entirely blank row, and each column's got a column heading. Now, with this list of 270 records, if I want to filter, there's a variety of ways I can turn the filter on. On the Home tab in the ribbon, for example, on the right-hand side, we do have the Sort and Filter button, and I could filter this list just by clicking this button here. But others will head to data in the ribbon. If you go to data in the ribbon, there's a group here called Sort and Filter, and this button here is another way that you can turn on the filter. Now in my level 1 course, I actually get them to right click this button and add it to their quick access toolbar, so it actually appears here. Let me right click and remove it, and I might remove this one as well. So in the level 1 course, I actually get them to right click filter and add it to their quick access toolbar. So it sits nice and conveniently here, and they've got quick access to it. I also get them to right click the clear button and add that to the quick access toolbar. So those buttons are both sitting there easily accessible, and so I can go back to home again. So the quick access toolbar is another way giving you quick access. But notice when you rest on the filter button that a shortcut key combination is also mentioned. And because I filtered so much in my day-to-day, I actually use the shortcut key combination, which is Control-Shift-L. And how I learn is by word association. So I know that the L means list, and that helps me remember the shortcut key. So Control-Shift-L for list is how I turn on and turn off the filter. Let me show you. So I'm just sitting in this list. Control-Shift-L turns on the filter, and that's indicative by these little arrows here now appearing at the top of every column heading, and Control-Shift-L turns off the filter. So I'm going to use the shortcut key and turn it back on again. I might actually hold the Control key and just wheel forward a little bit so you can see more clearly what I'm working with. So now that I've turned the filter on, and now that each column heading has a drop down, excuse me, I just had a coughing attack, then we can now proceed to start filtering this list. Now, if I want to do an exact filter, for example, I would just hit the drop down on region, and from there I would be able to choose a particular region. So this list here is an alphabetical unique list of everything that's in that column. If I don't want all the regions, I'll take off select all. And if I just want Topor, I just turn on Topor and click that option and OK. And immediately in the bottom left of my screen in what they call the status bar, it says 42 out of 270 records were found. So 42 records are from Topor. Now, another indication that a filter is at play is the row numbering. The row numbering has now gone blue, which indicates there's a filter on. Also, the drop down has got a little funnel symbol, and if I rest on it, it actually tells me the criteria that's affecting the results I'm seeing. So the criteria is that these records equal Topor. So that's my exact filter, and if I want to clear that filter, I could just hit this clear button, which I've added to my quick access toolbar, or I could go to the sort and filter button and choose the clear option there, or I could go to data and choose the clear option there, or most likely people will hit the drop down here and choose to clear the filter here, or you can actually just say select all and that will also clear the filter. Or if you're into shortcut keys, you could just press Ctrl-Shift-L once to turn it filter off, and again to turn the filter back on again. So Ctrl-Shift-L twice. So that's an exact filter. Now, what if I want all the regions that begin with T or contain T? Then I'd hit the drop down on region and I would simply go to the search option and type a T. And then what you'll find is everything that's listed there from Christchurch to Hamilton to Rotorua to Taupo to Tauranga to Te Puke to Tokoroa have all got T's in them. So if I then turn around and said I want TA, it would give me all the ones with TA in them, which is Taupo, Tauranga, and Whakatane is included because the tane at the end has got a TA. So you can just type a portion of what letters are contained within the region name and it will filter those out. If I go backspace and type an E, then that gives me Te Puke, TE. And at that point, I would probably just press enter. So if I type TE and press enter, I have all those records from Te Puke, which again, if I look on the lower left of my screen, is 24 out of 270 records come from Te Puke. So it's then that I can proceed to print those or do what I need to do with that information. To clear the filter, I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-L once, twice, and that clears it by turning off and turning on the filter. Okay, so that is just doing an exact filter. Now, what if we wanted to look at the various types of text filters that you've got? Let's go to last name, for example. If you hit the drop down on last name, there are text filters because the information in that column is text. So the types of text filters you can apply are equals, does not equals, begins with, ends with, contains, does not contain. So if I perhaps am working through this list alphabetically, I may be up to the C's. So I want all those people whose last name begins with, and then I type the letter C. And when I click OK, those are all the people whose last name begins with C, which is 24 out of 270 records. And again, I can just clear it either using the button or whichever method you prefer. Now, if the information in the column is not text, maybe the information in the column is a number, then you have number filters and they're quite different from text filters. Text filters are begins with, ends with, contains, whereas number filters, if I go over here to actual, are things like equals, greater than, less than, between, above average, below average, things like that. So I might ask for all the records where the actual value was between 1500 and 2500. And when I go OK, all of those records will have values, all 78 of them, will have values between 1500 and 2500. Let's have a look at some of the other number filters that are in there. I'm just going to hit the drop down again and think, right, I might have a look at these number filters and I might start first of all by clearing. Now, if I click on H2 and hit Control down arrow, that takes me to the bottom of the list, and Control up arrow takes me to the top of the list. But if I click on H2 and go Control Shift down arrow, then that, excuse me for a second. Sorry, that was the postman. Okay, so where was I? If you've got a column with numerical values such as we have here, and I just went Control Shift down arrow to select all these cells, If I look at the bottom of my screen, I can see the average of the selected cells is 1495 and a third. Now, if you're not seeing that value, you need to right click what we call the status bar, and you need to turn on these options here. So you can see the average, the count, the max, the min, the sum, etc. Okay, so if the average is 1495, and then I press the up arrow to get rid of the selection, and then I go to the drop down on actual and I go to number filters, and I say, look, give me all the ones that are above average or below average. They will either be above 1495 and a third or below 1495 and a third. So let's say we want above. Now all of these will be above that value, and so that's 96 out of 270 records. So if you're wanting all the records that are above average or below average, that's a really handy feature. Another number filter that's quite handy if we go back in there is also things like top 10. If I go into that option there, you're not actually restricted to top and you're not actually restricted to 10. So it's a little bit of a play on words. Let's say I want the top 20, or maybe the top 5 items. And if I go OK, those are the top 5 items. Now it's actually struggling because the numbers are pretty similar. There's 4,000 mentioned a number of times. But if I also go back in again and say number filters and say top 10, I could say, look, give me the bottom 15 and instead of items, percent. Things like that, and I can go OK. And so that's the bottom 15% of records. So that is quite handy when people are looking for the top 25 growers or the top 25% of sales or the bottom 10% of students, things like that. And then of course I can just clear that filter simply by choosing this option. So if the data is numbers, if the data in that column is numbers, then you've got number filters. If the data in the column is text, then you've got text filters. But also, if you've got data in a column that's a date type, then you can hit the drop down, for example, on deadline. And your dates are nicely organized, firstly by year, and if I hit the plus, secondly by month, and then thirdly by day. So that in itself is quite wonderful, and I'll hit the minus to collapse that. But you also have date filters. So if you do work with dates a lot, you can say, look, give me all the ones that are due this week, or give me all the ones that are due next week, or this month, or next month, or even all the ones that happened last year. There's all sorts of date filters that are really, really useful if you explore these options here. And you can even ask for year to date, and you can also ask for date that falls within certain periods like January or February or March. And you can also do a custom filter if none of these options are actually what you're looking for. So filtering is very powerful in Excel. And if the data in a column is text, you can do text filters. If the data in a column is numbers, you can do numerical filters. And if the data in a column is a collection of dates, you can do date filters. And at the end of the day, you can simply turn the filter off by going Control-Shift-L. And I think that's about it with regards to filtering. Now that type of filtering also, just to conclude this video, has got a name or a label. This is filter in place of selection. Filter in place of selection is the type of filtering that you're doing when you turn on the filter drop downs. And what that basically means is that you're hiding those rows that don't meet that criteria and only showing the rows that do. So when we get to video 4, we'll be looking at advanced filtering, which is different from filtering in place of selection. I'm going to turn the filter off, and I hope you like this video. Sorry about the postman and a couple of interruptions, but please like or subscribe and come back for the next video. I really want to show you what you can do with Excel, and particularly with advanced filtering and database functions and macros, which are going to be an undercurrent through this collection of videos that you'll be watching. Okay, see you soon. Bye.